But, mental health is something that I think that while it has become a conversation, a topic of conversation, it's become more normalized. You see a lot more celebrities and athletes who are stepping up and talking about mental health. We see a lot of influencers on social media talking about mental health. We know that Rachel Cargill has done a lot of work around creating a foundation to support Black women and those who identify as women and girls, doing that work to provide them with free or low income therapy that they need. But I think we don't talk enough about how, what it looks like when it shows up. And it's not just a woman's issue. Men go through it as well. Hell, everybody goes through it. It's not gender specific.
I saw a meme that talked about high functioning anxiety. And I think that there are some times where that is how I operate. I think a lot of leaders might operate from this place at times. And I'm going to pull it up, but it just talked about, in the center, it's kind of like how it looks, like you're perfection, you're busy, you just you present in all of these ways. You're organized, which I'm not. But I try to control all of the things to combat some of the overthinking that I do, some of the imposter syndrome that I have, some of the, just all of the things that are going on for me that cause me anxiety, right? And one of the things that's been really helpful for me in the past couple of months was there's an organization called the Center for Suicide Awareness, and there's two people, Erin and Barb, that are in charge of that. I started a company called The Gamers, and they do a lot of work with gaming and mental health, very specifically suicide prevention. And on our first conversation, on our first call back in April, a really eye-opening thing that they named for me is mental health is a spectrum, right? We often think of the things that are issues and concerns, but mental health is a spectrum. We all are on that spectrum at any given time, right? We are somewhere along the path of actually caring for ourselves, and our mental health is in a positive space, or we are in spaces where it is in a negative, and we need to figure out what we need to do to balance that. And then there's a spectrum of all of the things that show up, right?
A lot of time with mom. It's making me think about students or children who have been home with families and the things that they've seen and experienced and may or may not have been able to process in a way that is healthy. And then they're being thrust into spaces that are not prepared for them, right? So spaces and people who are not prepared for them. So I keep thinking about what advanced preparation has looked like for schools and what it really needs to look like moving forward. And I think Verta said this a couple weeks ago. You have to check on kids and families, right? They need to connect with the adults, even if it's virtually. You have to have these check-ins beforehand, because there will be no joy if everybody's a stranger. And even if you may have seen those children before, you may have seen them 2, 3, 4 years in the building, you saw them, but you may still be a stranger. And we need to get past that stranger stage before kids walk through those doors or they turn those computers back on for academic work.
Environment. One of the things that's been on my mind a lot as we were getting ready to get prepared for mental health, this conversation, is honestly joy, and trying to bring joy to myself, what brings joy to my children, to my students, and really trying to understand what brings them a sense of joy, what brings them a sense of happiness, what brings them a sense of discovery. And even in the beginning of the year, in school, we're so quick to jump into what has to be learned, and teachers, often get very stressed about having not covered things. And I can relate to that stress even as a leader, I didn't do this, so I'm stressing myself out about tasks. And I think we're going to be in a really interesting situation where everybody's so task heavy, so task driven. Some states have canceled state exams, some have not. But I think there's just a culture of, are the kids learning the stuff? And then for adults, are we doing the things that we are supposed to do, the non-negotiables or whatever, that we're totally missing out on whether or not our soul or our spirit is even being fed, even into what we're doing. which is the silent killer.